All right, greetings everyone. I'm Paul Huzar, and Mike Long is joining us as well. I'm the CEO of VetCor and Team VetCor. VetCor is a restoration company that primarily does water damage, mold remediation, and commercial and residential properties. But what makes us unique is we primarily hire veterans as our service technicians. Part of our mission is to create meaningful, sustainable employment opportunities for our nation's heroes, and now business ownership opportunities through franchising that concept. And I'm also the CEO of Team VetCor, which is a holding company for about 5 companies that handle the franchising of VetCor. Mike Long is with us tonight. He is the VP of Franchise Development. He is kind of our franchise salesman. He's the guy that runs point on the franchise development stuff. And tonight he's going to walk you through our webinar. It's the next one in our series in Franchising 101, the importance of the validation process. I'm like Mike, I'll make myself available anytime, any place, anywhere. This isn't VetCor specific. We'll give you a little bit about VetCor, but we're really trying to help share the knowledge to make it easier for veterans to get into franchising in general, answer a lot of your questions, avoid or mitigate the risk, or at least the perception of risk, and make it easier and more acceptable for veterans to get into franchising, because we believe in it. It's a great industry. So with that, welcome to everybody, and I'll turn it over to Mike Long.
Hey, thanks, Paul, and thanks for everyone joining us tonight, taking time of your evening. Like Paul said, we're just going to cover a few basic tenets of the franchise process here. There we go. So agenda, we're going to have a little overview. This step in the awarding process of the overall franchising model is, to me, the most important step within this whole process. And then we'll talk about whether or not you should validate or you should not. And then we'll have some Q&A. So this little base about us. Founded 2013, as Paul mentioned, we're emergency restoration services franchise. Water, mold, roof tarps, board ups, smoke and fire, any of those types of things that you may come across for residential or commercial businesses. And as Paul said, when the company was founded, provide meaningful, sustainable employment opportunities for veterans. Now it's small business ownership. And so we'll go through this and we'll move on to validation. So what is validation? Validation is one step within the greater franchisee awarding process. And we always like to say it's an awarding process because we're not selling anything, right? We truly believe that this is a mutual benefit for both parties involved, the potential franchisee, as well as us as a franchisor. So that's why we look at it as such, that this is one of those events where it's truly a marriage from a business perspective. Also, what does the validation do? This supports you as a potential franchisee with the evidence you need from those individuals that are currently franchisees of the brand, okay? You get an opportunity to hear directly from current business owners who are representing the brand that you're considering representing, and to find out what their value proposition is. Why is it a good part to be a teammate or a member of this brand that you're looking and you're investigating? All right. Lastly, it paints a very and more accurate and precise picture for you as the potential franchisee. Some specific points that you really want to get into from a granular level with the current franchisees is the onboarding and the timeline. What did it look like for a franchisee from the time that they started the process until they got to the point where they were signing the agreement? And then once that agreement signed, what does that timeline look like? And what does that process look like moving forward from the signing of the agreement, getting you to a point of you're getting to your grand opening? So that's an important aspect of you want to do as part of the validation piece. The other part is training, right? Training is an important aspect because you want to know how much time How many resources do you need? What is the cost of it? Is it provided by the franchise brand? Is it, if it's not provided by the franchise brand, it's an outside entity from a training perspective. So for us, one of our trainings is not handled by VetCor, it's handled by a certification agency called the IICRC. And so that's a specific cost, and it's handled by a third party, not by us at our VetCor Training Academy. So those are all the types of things that you really want to take a look at from the training perspective. Next, operationally, what does it look like on a day-to-day process for you as a franchisee? What does a day in the life look like from an operations standpoint? What is that manual, that operations manual that a franchisor provides to you? What does that outline? And was it thorough? Did it not leave anything uncovered that you're trying to play a guessing game on how to handle the service, or have a specific standard operating procedure on how to handle something with a customer or with a service? So you want to ensure that the operation manual is, complete and thorough. The next part is sales. What is a part of the sales for you as a franchisee? Is sales a part of the job of being the franchisee? Well, I tell any small business owner, you're always in sales. So there's going to be some aspect of sales and marketing that will need to go hand in hand. Okay. So that's an important aspect of it. Also, marketing. What does that marketing look like? So from a marketing perspective, are you required to pay a marketing fund fee? Is there a percent of the overall sales you have that must be paid back to the franchisor? Is there a area cooperative agreement that you may have to pay into to be a part of or be a member of for that brand? Those are also some instances. What about business cards? What about handouts? What about marketing materials? What about uniforms? All those things go into marketing the brand as a whole. And so it's important to understand from those current franchisees, what does that look like? How much are they spending on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis for marketing? To include being a member of their chambers of commerce, joining networking groups to get the word out about their business. All those small things that you may not necessarily think of, but certainly they can add up from a cost perspective. And, being particularly just starting out, you want to make sure you're spending every dollar that counts, and you can get some sort of return on investment for those dollars you're spending from a marketing perspective. And then lastly, what does the ongoing support look like, right? The ongoing support is a really important aspect of things because, once you sign your franchise agreement and once you get your location open or you start providing the service that your brand offers, what type of follow-on support? Is it a sign and forget type brand where you have to figure everything out on your own? You don't have a phone a friend, so to speak. When you call your corporate headquarters or your corporate support staff, they take a day or 2 days to get back to you, and you don't get timely feedback to be able to solve issues or problems. What type of ongoing support is provided by that franchisor is something that you really want to kind of drill down to within the whole validation process. It's an important aspect of it. Let's talk about the validation process itself. Okay. This is important. It is your opportunity to do your due diligence and your research on whether or not you as a franchisee potential franchisee want to represent this brand, want to invest a lot of your savings or money or get a loan to start a business that you may not be really sold on, so to speak. Okay. So that's an important aspect of things. Why is this important? Well, those individuals that you're reaching out to, those current franchisees, they're walking in your shoes, okay? And you want to walk in their same shoes. So who better to speak to and get the God's honest truth about the pros, the cons, the training, the marketing, the sales, the ongoing support, et cetera, about a business that you're looking to get into. Now, this is no different. Just because you're looking to purchase a franchise, it's no different than you starting up your own business from scratch. So that's an important aspect of this. Yes, a model's been created, the brand has created the model, and that's all well and good. But you still have to do a complete due diligence process. And speaking to fellow franchisees is probably the most important way that you can conduct your research. The other part, what the validation process allows you to do is help you to complete your pro forma or your business plan. You know, you're never going to start a business, buy a business, or start a franchise without putting together your finances and looking at a pro forma and building it from the ground up to make sure you understand what all really goes into handling this business. What are your upfront costs before you even open your door? What are the costs that are associated, as I mentioned earlier, with training? Is that included as part of the franchise fee, or is that additional on top of it? Do you have to travel to a specific location from a cost perspective for that training? So those are the different types of things that you can go ahead and ask, get those answers in filling out that pro forma. You know, you're not going to know what the average cost of an hourly wage employee is for that brand. Great question to ask the current franchisees. So those are all the things that can go into and help you complete your pro forma, your business plan, to make sure you have a really, truly painted financial picture of going into it. Because if any business that doesn't know their numbers, they're not going to be in business for very long. So that's a really important aspect. The other bullet there is talking about the culture, the training, the support, and also the quality of potential teammates. This is something that may be overlooked during the process, that last component, and I'll touch on it in a second. But assessing the culture, you want to make sure that it's a right cultural fit for you and your family, because you'll be signing an agreement that's anywhere between 5, most franchise agreements are at a minimum 5 years, maybe even up to 10 years. And so do you really want to be a part of this organization from a cultural perspective, from an integrity level, from a honesty perspective, from they do what they say they're going to do perspective in working with you? The other part is the training. What level of training do they provide you as the franchisor? The support, etc. Now, that last part I mentioned is the quality potential teammates. You know, when you start to look at particularly a smaller brand that is an emerging brand, maybe somewhat similar to a VetCor, you know, the initial franchisees in an organization can very much paint a picture of that organization or that brand. And so that's why it's important when you're engaging these individuals to know and understand what the current franchisee's background is. Where do they come from? Do you want to join this brand given that these current franchisees are of this quality? And you know what this really gets down to, and this is something you really, truly have to think about in a brand when you join it. At some point in time, you're going to want to go ahead and remove yourself or your exit from this brand. It may be by passing it down to your children. It may be selling it out on an open market. It may be, you know, bringing on a business partner to help you expand greater. Well, what does that come down to? If the network of the brand has stellar franchisees, and you know that this brand is going to be able to continue to grow and mature, what does that do to the value of your personal franchise? Yes, you still have to have good financials. You still have to do well from that aspect. But when somebody looks at the brand as a whole, there's some equity that's built into that because of the brand and the quality of the brand. And what makes up the quality of the brand are the people. And so that's an important aspect when you're doing some evaluation of this. And so during that validation process, make sure you take the time to understand who the current franchisees are that you're speaking to. Let's talk about legal reasons about the validation process. So we as the franchisor, there are certain things we can communicate to you, and there are certain things we cannot disclose to you. And the reason being is franchise law is fairly specific, okay? We as franchisors, we cannot make any promises about financials or revenue projections. We can't make any promises regarding business margins. We can only disclose what is in line item 19 of the franchise disclosure document, or the FDD. And that's an important aspect. So if you're getting made promises by a specific brand about how much money you can make and all this stuff, and the gross margins are this and everything along those lines, that's all well and good. When you get their FDD and you take a look at it, if what they're telling you is not in there, then that should be a red flag for yourself. Make sure that what is being disclosed to you by the franchisor is also, from a financial perspective, found in their line item 19. Because if they're not disclosing what's in the line item 19 to you, and they're disclosing additional information, that may throw up a red flag for yourself. So just be cautious of that. And that's one of the neat things about the validation process in helping you go and get through this. So once again, just to wrap up, the validation process is just one step in the overall franchise process that goes from an initial conversation with the franchise, then to create an application and a personal financial statement. Next, you're going to be filling out and paperwork to get funding if you don't have enough capital to do it. You're also going to probably potentially be needed or asked to take a personality test, potentially have a background check and screen done with you on you. In some instances, depending upon the brand, you may get an opportunity to talk to the CEO or talk to the COO for a 30-minute window. Take advantage of that time. Don't skip those steps. Those are vital components to this, because it gets down to the culture of the organization. Next, you'd be asked to come in and do a meet the team day or discovery day. Once you've created the pro forma and you feel that this is a business opportunity for you that you can move forward with, make sufficient money, and you've validated it through all that time with the current franchisees to get to the meet the team day, or the discovery day as they're known, where you come in, you meet the franchise executive team, you spend a good full day with them, maybe two, depending upon the brand, how they have it set up. And then at the end of that, that's the process. And then it's decision-making time for you as a potential franchisee and for the franchisor to say, hey, we think you're going to be a good member of this team. You as a potential franchisee feel that this is a great brand for you and your family to represent. And then you kind of consummate it then with a signing of a franchise agreement. So that's really kind of the overall awarding process. But specifically tonight, the key component to, I believe, to this entire process is the validation process for you as a potential franchisee. So with that, I'll go ahead and open up to any questions and answers, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, I've got some questions about the VetCor model. I wasn't sure if you wanted to try to avoid focusing on VetCor, just look at the franchising in general. But I've been looking at the VetCor site and considering it for a while. I'm just trying to figure out from the initial discussions to the point where a franchisee may be able to actually open an office, say in Central Florida or somewhere else. What's the general time frame that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Jeffrey. So usually from an initial phone call with me, your inquiry comes to me, we have an initial phone call. Usually from that point to getting to the signing of the franchise agreement is approximately anywhere between 60 to 90 days. And that really just comes down to you or the potential franchisee. My job, as I see it, is to work with you on your timeline to get you to where you want to be in a specific time frame. We've had individuals that it's been, longer because of COVID, and one of the gentlemen actually was activated by the Texas State Guard. So it took him a little bit longer. We had one gentleman who's an active duty captain right now. He's just coming off active duty at the end of this month, and he's opening his franchise on September 10th. So he had, when I first met him, it was in March. And I told him, well, if you have plans of opening up by that time, we need to have you through the entire process, and you need to sign an agreement by April 30th. And he's like, okay, I'm on board. Let's go. And that was his timeline. So it took him only 45 days. So it just depends upon it. On average, 60 to 90 days to get to the signing of the agreement. And then once that agreement's signed, you're looking at about 90 to 120 days to get you to a grand opening.
And so there's a couple things with that too now. One, you probably have heard the challenge with vehicles in the United States and supply chain. We typically are working, it's completely up to the franchisee, but we have a business partner in enterprise fleet management, enterprise rent a car. They're actually a veteran-owned business. Enterprise is named after the USS Enterprise. They're a great partner. We hold the master lease, and then they lease to us, and we lease the franchisees. And they've been very good at finding us the vehicles that we need, either through dealer stock, and mostly through dealer stock across the nation. The challenge has been if you have to order them, there's the whole chip manufacturing thing that's causing the supply chain issue. So that's one thing that's kind of uncertain right now. But what we try to do is ask the franchisee, when do you want to open? And then try and backward plan off that. Because what we also want to do is plan your cash flow so that you're not, renting a facility and paying rent, but, 3 months in advance before you're able to start earning revenue from the place that you're renting, right? And you don't want to bring your people on too soon. You want to bring them on just in time so you get trained, and then they're trained, and then you have your opening ceremony and you're open. But also we want to give yourself enough time to do the local marketing and things so that you're talking to local insurance agents and local realtors and saying, hey, I'm going to open VetCor here in, Orlando or whatever. And so we're working all of the national relationships and things and with the third-party administrators and the insurance carriers and saying, hey, they're going to be credentialed, they're going to be open by X date. But then there's inertia, the people in that area are used to dispatching claims to all of the other restoration companies that are existing in that area. So we've got to do something to change that human behavior. And that's for the franchisee locally to go talk to people who are going to be able to be referral sources. And for us then to talk to kind of the little old lady in tennis shoes that's dispatching the insurance jobs to people, et cetera. So we don't want to open too fast because we want to make sure that when you are open, you're maximizing your ability to earn revenue.
Great. I guess I have the benefit of having a job right now, so I'm not in a critical rush and not planning to retire from the military in 6 months or something like that. So I don't have a start date. I'm just tired of the corporate life that I've been in and bored out of my mind in my current job, and I'm thinking it's time for a change. So
yeah, I mean, when you look at it like that, and if we find people like that, that's really in my opinion, the best way to do it, particularly if you're already you have a network where you're thinking about opening a franchise, because then you're not driven by something. You're going to do it right. You're going to do it patient. You're going to do it deliberately, but also smartly, so that it may be an extended amount of time because you have the ability to kind of network and develop the referral sources and things like that. But also you're going to hire wisely, and but you're still going to hire. What we do is we backward plan. We develop a PMP, a project management plan, right, based on when the desired opening date is. And we say, okay, but by that date you have to be credentialed. So in order to be credentialed, you have to have your auto insurance. You have your certificates of insurance. In order to have your certificates of insurance, auto insurance, you have to have your VINs. In order to have your VINs, you got to order the vehicles, and they have to be in by this time. In order to have the vehicles, you got to have them built out with all the shelving and all the equipment in there, and that has to be delivered. And then you got to have all the drivers who are credentialed and trained, et cetera. And so that's a 2-week training that you got to get them through, all that kind of stuff. And so we walk that through, and then Scott, our chief operating officer, who's a retired Army Sergeant Major, him and right now we have 2 franchise support reps, and they're both retired E7s. One's a E7 Marine Gunny, and one's a E7 Chemical NCO from the Army. They typically are meeting weekly with the potential franchisees, and now we have 2 of them. They're getting ready to open, and they're going through all the steps in the project management plan and making sure that they're hitting all the training aspects, all of the things that have to be prepared.
And I'm a project manager, so I understand all the lingo and everything. I've got a PMP certification, among others. Yep. So I definitely understand that. But Just a quick point. I was looking at the website, and there's lots of Army and Marine Corps. Do you guys have any Navy there?
Funny you should ask, Jeffrey. We have a pending one. There's some hold up from a familial matter to bring on a Naval Academy grad. Once he gets that little piece worked out, he can form his LLC and sign his agreements. He's been through the whole process. I mean, completely. So
if you see the guidons in Mike's background, that's actually
Yep.
old. We have 10 franchises now. But when someone opens, we do grand opening ceremony. We invite the local chamber of commerce and everything, and then we do like a unit activation ceremony. So we present them with a guidon, right? And the color of the guidon is based on the branch of service of the franchisee. So you can see, black and gold or Army, scarlet and gold is the one on the far right as you look at it. That's a Marine Corps. And then the fourth one there is red and white and blue trim. That's Coast Guard. And so obviously Navy would be navy and gold. And we don't have any Air Force yet either. That would be blue and silver. So we're waiting.
Right.
We're waiting. We got Army, Marines, and Coast Guard so far.
And for the Florida market, I see the western part of Central Florida is pretty well covered, but it seemed like from Orlando to the eastern coast, from Miami up to Jacksonville, there's really no offices there. Are you planning, or are you looking at growth in that area, or do you think you have enough in Florida already?
No, Jeffrey, our initial model was to build Florida out first, because that was, headquartered in Tampa. Paul and Scott had expanded the business, had an office in Fort Myers, and then expanded it again and had an office in Davie, outside of Fort Lauderdale. Towards the end of last year, we decided to focus more solely on the franchising aspect of the business than trying to run three different company owned locations. So we kind of folded those, Davie and the Fort Myers office, and just now currently have the Tampa office. So, our goal, like I said, was to build out Florida first. But as we start to get connected with people that were in other places outside of Florida, we made the conscious decision that we were going to follow the talent and the people that really could, take and plant the VetCor flag in the ground in a brand new state for us and would bode well. And so that's kind of what we've done. So we have, the one in Georgia, we have one in Texas with the second one coming on in October, one in New York, and then the other one in Virginia, which will open up on September 10th. So from Florida's perspective, yes, Southeast Florida is wide open right now for us, as well as Southwest Florida. So those two areas where we had the offices previously are pretty wide open.
So there is a franchisee. She owns 2 territories in Jacksonville, and the franchisee has the West Orlando office. He owns now 6 total territories. He's interested in kind of looking at the rest of Orlando and moving east across the state from Orlando, but he's not. There's no commitments to that yet. So there is no right of first refusal or anything. So we have an existing franchisee who's interested potentially in moving from Orlando east and expanding his footprint. But nothing set in stone yet.
Where are you located, Jeffrey?
Oviedo, just northeast of Orlando.
Yeah.
And if you're familiar with the Orlando area, there's UCF, and I live about 9 miles due north.
Yep.
Okay.
I was just looking at the map, and if you look at Oviedo down to Melbourne and up to Daytona, that triangle doesn't have any immediate coverage. I just don't know how far the region from a particular office would it actually reach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our territories are based upon 2 factors. One is not really set by us. It's set by the insurance carriers and the TPAs that we credential with, and that is response time. And so when we're looking at a territory, what you end up doing is building out, center mass and then going out an hour radius kind of in each direction. Because, if you have a water claim or loss that's say in the northern part of your territory, and then you get another one while you're up there in the southern part of your territory. You know, it's going to take you a good, you know, potential 2 hours to get there. The other criteria that we have is population. So in our case, population for us is 400,000 people population-wise for a territory. So compare that to the large majority of our competitors. Their territories are between 100 to 250,000. So we've made them, you know, purposely a little bit larger because we're a newer brand and company, and so we're emerging from that perspective. And we wanted to, you know, kind of reward the early adopters to have a realistic size from that perspective.
All right. Other thought that I had was regarding other states. Are there any? Obviously, there are some hurdles, but are there any legal restrictions or barriers to somebody from Florida opening an office in another state, like say Chattanooga, Tennessee, or Denver or something?
No.
Right.
The only thing we have to check on that, Jeffrey, is there are certain states that are registration states, and that falls on us as the franchisor, that we have to register our franchise disclosure document with those states. The only other thing too may be certain states require licensure or certifications for mold. And so depending upon if that's one of the 6 states that require that, then, you know, you could potentially be doing mold work in the state of Florida, but then, you know, you attempt to open another one in another location, say Maryland, and they have a mold requirement that's up there. And so you may have to take a specific mold assessor course. You may have to have you may even have to have time in business. It varies by the states. So it's just something you'd have to look into, but no.
No, and there's other crazy things that we trust the franchisee locally to be the expert on. You know, sales tax is different. Some states tax services. We haven't found any yet that tax restoration services, but some do tax services. There's interesting laws about registering your business. Typically, you have to pay some type of business tax. So we're in Hillsborough County, so we have to pay Hillsborough County business tax and get a business license. When I operated an office down in Davie, Florida, because it was in the city of Davie, I had to pay the Davie business tax and register the business in Davie, Florida, but not Broward County. And so every municipality, county, and everything is different. So you got to figure that stuff out. So if you have potentially like an LLC that owns a franchise in Florida, you have to check and make sure that, you know, that LLC can also own another business in, you know, Chattanooga, Tennessee, or whatever. And
then there are the obvious hurdles and legal hurdles and stuff like that. There might be limitations there or things that they would have to overcome, but there's really no legal reason it can't be done then.
No.
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
So if my wife and I wanted to get a vacation home in the Smokies or something like that, we could use that as an opportunity to grow and build a network in that area and create something there. Right?
Look, it's, you know, those types of things are huge advantages to business ownership, because then, and it's not, you know, I used to think it was kind of like people skirting tax laws and things, but it's actually, you know, the way, like I lease my own vehicle, I lease it through the company, and it's because I use it 90% of the time for the company, and it just makes sense, right? And so there are tax advantages to that, because now Paul Huzar isn't paying that payment, VetCor is, and it's coming out of my taxable revenue and income. So there's a bunch of smart things like that you could do as a business owner. That's just, you know, practical sense if you're looking at establishing a second home and things like that.
Right. And Jeremy, I don't know if you have any questions. I kind of feel like I'm still in the meeting, so feel free to chime in if you have anything.
Jeremy's on staff duty, man.
I'm sure I have a picture like that, but it's one of those that's printed on paper sitting in a shoebox in the closet. So it's from those days.
Hey, look, we're happy to help, and we're around anytime. Our passion is to help fellow veterans, and if that leads to an opportunity with VetCorp, awesome. If not, we're fulfilling our mission by helping other vets.
And that's the big driving factor that's attracting me, because I don't want to just work with veterans. I want to support veterans coming out of the military, and if possible, use it as an opportunity to branch out into at-risk teams or something like that. There are people that don't need a handout, that they just need a hand up.
Yes.
Need some guidance and stuff like that. And I've been working in the special needs community for 19 years now, since my son was born, because he was born deaf. And we've been in the special needs community, the inner city community, where the schools are just not what they need to be, and all the things that you learn from working in communities where people need a hand up. And
yep,
I think that's where I belong, and where I'm at right now is just about the other end of the spectrum. So,
well, good for you, man.
Well, and that's one of the things, as we Paul and Scott started this business, as part of that mission was, we provide the estimating and project coordinating services for the franchisee. So you do all the, on the ground type stuff, you get all the paperwork in, you get all your, your scope, your dry logs, your photos, your certificates of completion and authorization, all those things. And they go up into the cloud and everything. And at our home office, then we have, and also remotely, we have, project estimators and coordinators who then will bundle all that together, and they'll get it off an invoice to the insurance carriers and to the TPAs. Because you think, Allstate may want a certain thing versus, a Nationwide or versus a USAA and things of that nature. So rather than you having to have someone on staff to do that, which could cost you upwards, $45,000 for just one person. And then what happens when that person goes on vacation? Whereas we have a number of estimators, project coordinators currently at our corporate entity, one of which was a spouse of an active duty at MacDill Air Force Base. One is an Army veteran herself. Another one is a retired Lieutenant Colonel, Army. And, as we continue to build this network of franchisees, Paul and Scott's vision is think about how many disabled veterans that we can employ as remote estimators and project coordinators, because we can bring them on into Tampa, put them up here, train them, get them on how to do everything, provide them with a laptop, send them back home, and now they're working from the comfort of their own home and serving other fellow veterans that are the franchisee owners. So that's kind of a bigger picture and an aspirational type goal that Paul and Scott have down the road for us as an organization of, continuing once again to be veterans supporting veterans, the field folks versus, the estimator, project coordinator.
I did have one other pseudo legal question. I've been taking some classes to become certified as a fire investigator, because the job I've been in until very recently involved inspecting and investigating power generation equipment after catastrophic failures. Some things happened at work and kind of got in the way of that, but I would like to complete my certification as a fire investigator or a fire and explosion investigator. But I'm curious, if I was to perform an inspection of a building or a structure after a fire, would there be any conflict of interest in working with a company that then does the restoration after the fire? It seems like that there's a potential conflict of interest there, but I don't know that the legal ramifications or anything.
Yeah, I would consult a business attorney. I don't believe that there is. The company, so we don't chase fires. There are companies like 1-800 Up that and other companies that chase fires. Right. So they listen to the dispatch system and everything, and they'll send people out. They call them victim advocates, and they'll send them out with like a duffel bag of sundries and a bunch of $100 gift cards and put them up for a night. to try and secure that fire job, the restoration job, and the build back job.
Right.
And they don't, it's not a quid pro quo. They recognize some, they'll get some, they won't. And so it's a pretty cool way because they're trying to take care of people, but they're also using it for business development. Right. We do fire jobs that will come to us from the insurance company. And there's nothing prohibiting a franchisee. If they wanted to do that, they could do that. And some people know that some 1-800 Board Up recruits all the former fire chiefs, and they go to work for them when they retire and stuff. And so there are companies that do that. We just don't. We do fire jobs because they're insured losses, and the ones that we get typically are direct from the insurance companies. So I don't believe that there is any conflict of interest. You'd want to check with that, et cetera. And then the other thing you want to do is, if you're doing that as kind of your LLC that's outside of VetCor, that's fine, no issues. But if you're doing that as the brand of VetCor, which isn't necessarily a bad idea either, then we got to chat and say, okay, does that make sense? Maybe it's something that, wow, I never thought about that. And I never thought about that. Maybe it's something that, Jeffrey, you're going to start in the pilot program with VetCor. So you brought the idea to us. So we're not going to charge you any revenue or any royalty on that. And you can use our brand to do that, et cetera. But then we're going to ask you to, help write our SOP for that, to share it, because it's a great idea and it's another service that other franchise. So that's what we're trying to do as we grow too, is to get franchisees who see opportunities, because you're going to see opportunities on them before I ever will, and make them part of the team. Because you got to be careful. This brand is my brand, right? And then when a franchisee, it becomes our brand, and so you can't necessarily be what I tell franchisees, you can't be an entrepreneur. You can be entrepreneurial minded, and we want that, because we want, if everybody's entrepreneurial minded, we'll actually come up with better ideas and vet them and grow smartly as a franchise system.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I guess the conflict of interest may not have been the right term. I think you brought up the point that I was really concerned about it. Is there a business problem or some other type of problem with doing that, not on the side, but as part of the job or something like that? And if I do it on the side, then that's a different story. All right. You should see some of the fire investigations I've done, because I focus on wind turbines that are 300 to 400 feet tall.
Oh.
And I carry a 70 pound bag of tools up a 400-foot ladder to get into a fire scene and try to understand the cause of the fire and come up with a plan for disassembly. And I just turned 50 in March, so I'm ready to hand it over to somebody else. So,
good for you, man.
Good for you.
At the same time, it's one of those things that 20-something adrenaline junkies wish they could do. And I've been doing it for 5 years. I've done 34 of them, and I have not found a single person that wants to do it twice. Every time I take somebody up with me, they say, I'm never doing this again. I got some interesting pictures and cool stories, though. So
I'm sure.
Cool. All right, I am going to stop the webinar.